I drove 6 hours to surprise my dad with $8,000 courtside Lakers tickets for his birthday. He called me a disappointment in front of everyone, so I took them back. My dad's a lifelong Lakers fan. Growing up, he'd sneak a radio into his bedroom to listen to the finals. He used to say courtside seats were a dream only real men could achieve. Men with real jobs, real success. I wasn't that man. Not in his eyes, anyway. 3 years ago, I was eating ramen 5 nights a week, crashing on a mattress in a moldy apartment above a barber shop. I dropped out of college after panic attacks made me fail 3 classes in a row. My dad's response, "You always quit too soon. You never finish anything." My brother Todd, finance degree, hedge fund internship, wedding in Tuscany. Me, the dropout, the disappointment, the family punchline. When I started my own consulting business, I didn't even tell him what was the point. I already knew what he'd say. "You, a CEO of what? A lemonade stand." But I kept grinding. Every freelance gig I could find. Worked through burnout, through doubt, through nights I wanted to quit. And slowly, painfully, it started working. 1 client became 2, 2 became 10. A viral post brought in companies I'd only dreamed of. Suddenly, I had money, a new car, a better apartment, and that's when they noticed me again. My dad's first compliment in years. "Looks like you finally figured out how not to screw everything up." He laughed like it was a joke. I paid off their mortgage last year, quietly wired the money, told Mom to check the balance. She cried. My dad said, "That's the least you could do after all we've put into you." Put into me? You mean the years of calling me Laptop Larry at family BBQs? The constant reminders that I wasn't a real man with a real job, but I kept trying. Some stupid part of me still wanted him to be proud. That's why I bought those Lakers tickets. $8,000 courtside for his 60th birthday because I remembered those old photos of him in his high school jersey. Because despite everything, I thought maybe this would be the moment. Maybe this time he'd look at me the way he looked at Todd. I drove 6 hours straight, didn't even stop for coffee. Rehearsed the surprise 100 times in my head, how I'd walk in, hand him the gold-foiled envelope, watch his face light up. Dinner started perfect. Just close family, his favorite steak, a small cake. I gave him the tickets before dessert, slid the envelope across the table. He opened it slowly, eyebrows furrowing, then shooting up in disbelief. "No way," he muttered. I smiled. "Courtside," he said louder, showing everyone like they were medals. The room buzzed. My uncle clapped my back. My cousin asked, "Are these real?" Mom looked genuinely surprised. For the first time in years, I saw a real smile on my dad's face. Then came the toast. He raised his glass, tickets still in his other hand, grinning wide. To my son, still a disappointment. But hey, at least he's rich now. The laughter that followed was loud, cold. My cousin snorted wine through his nose. People were doubled over. Then my Uncle Tom leaned in just loud enough for me to hear. Luxury gifts don't make up for being a loser. Something inside me froze. I looked around the table. No one seemed to think anything was wrong. Not my cousin, not Todd, not even my mom. They were all still laughing like it was funny, like I deserved it. I didn't say a word. I stood up, reached across the table, and took the envelope back from my father's hand. His grin faltered. "What are you doing?" he asked, confused. "You made your point," I said. Gift retracted. I walked out, got in my car, drove off into the night with my jaw locked and my chest caving in. By the time I woke up this morning, he'd called me 67 times. 67. Then my phone rang again. An unfamiliar number. "Hello, this is Mr. Lambert," the voice said. "I'm your father's supervisor at Westfield Automotive." Someone recorded the dinner. Mr. Lambert sighed. A co-worker's daughter was there, filming for a family video project. She sent her dad the footage this morning asking if Grandpa's friend was okay, because the man at the dinner table looked sad right before he made everyone laugh. Her dad watched it and saw something we all missed. Right before the toast, your father looks directly at you. Not performing, not joking, just looking. And his face does this thing, this micro-expression of genuine affection before it hardens into the smile. The camera caught it. He wanted to say something real, something kind, and then he defaulted to the joke instead. Now that video's sitting on my desk because the coworker didn't know whether to send it to you or delete it. And your father's outside in the parking lot asking everyone if they know where his son went. I hung up without responding. My hands were shaking so hard I had to set the phone down on the kitchen counter. The whole conversation felt unreal, like someone had just told me my father had a secret twin who actually gave a damn. I stared at the wall for maybe 10 minutes, just breathing, trying to process what Lambert had said. A micro-expression of genuine affection. What the hell was I supposed to do with that? My phone buzzed. Text from Kevin, my friend from college who'd stuck around even when I was living off discount protein bars and spite. "Yo, you still got those Lakers tickets or what?" I'd texted him last night in a rage-fueled moment of spite, told him the whole story. He'd responded with, "Bring them over, we're going." And you know what? That's exactly what I did. I blocked my dad's number first. All 67 missed calls gone. Then I drove to Kevin's place, picked him up, and we went to that Lakers game like nothing had happened. Courtside seats, exactly like my dad had dreamed about. The players were so close I could hear them calling plays, see the sweat on their jerseys. Kevin kept elbowing me, grinning like a kid, and honestly it felt good to see someone actually appreciate the gesture without turning it into a weapon. We took photos, tons of them. Kevin posted a few to his Instagram, but I posted the best ones to mine, the ones where we're clearly courtside, clearly having the time of our lives. Because I knew Uncle Tom followed me. I knew he'd see them. I knew he'd tell my dad. Petty? Absolutely. Did I care? Not even a little bit. The game ended around 11. I dropped Kevin off, drove home, crawled into bed still wearing my jeans because I was too exhausted to care. I'd just started drifting off when my phone rang. 2 a.m. I grabbed it off the nightstand, saw Dad on the screen even though I'd blocked him, which meant, "Hello? Do you have any idea what you've done?" My mother's voice, shrill and furious. She was calling from his phone. "Your father is humiliated. The entire family is furious with you. You embarrassed him over a joke. A joke!" I sat up suddenly wide awake. "A joke?" "Yes, a joke. You've always been so sensitive. Why didn't anyone stop him?" The words came out flat, cold. "If it was just a joke, why didn't you tell him to stop? Why didn't Todd? Why didn't anyone at that table look uncomfortable except me?" Silence. Then quieter. "He talks to everyone like that. You know how he is." "Yeah," I said. "I do know how he is. That's the problem." I hung up. Blocked that number too. Then I just sat there in the dark, staring at nothing, knowing I wouldn't sleep for the rest of the night. My chest felt hollow and way too full at the same time, like I was drowning in air. I kept replaying the dinner in my head, the laughter, Uncle Tom's comment, my mother's face, not surprised, not hurt, just vaguely amused like she'd seen this episode before. Around 6 a.m., I gave up on sleep entirely and made coffee. I was standing at the kitchen window watching the sun come up when I heard a key turn in my front door. I froze. The door opened and Todd walked in, looking like he'd been awake for 3 days straight. His tie was loosened, his usually perfect hair sticking up in the back. "Mom gave me the spare key," he said before I could ask. "We need to talk." "How'd you even know I'd be awake?" "Because I know you." He dropped onto my couch without asking, rubbed his face with both hands. "I've been on the phone with Mom for 4 hours. 4. And before that, Dad called me 6 times asking what he should say to you. 6 different versions of the same conversation, and he didn't like any of my answers." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "What did you tell him?" "The truth, that he screwed up, that he can't keep treating you like a punchline and expect you to keep coming back." Todd looked up at me, and I realized he had dark circles under his eyes that I'd never noticed before. He asked me how to apologize. I gave him a script, told him exactly what to say, exactly how to say it. And you know what he did? Let me guess. Ignored all of it. Every word. Todd laughed, but it sounded brittle. Then he called me back an hour later asking why you weren't answering his calls, like I'm some kind of magic family translator who can fix everything he breaks. I poured myself more coffee. Didn't offer Todd any because he looked like caffeine was the last thing he needed. "Why are you here?" "Because I'm tired." He said it so quietly I almost didn't hear him. "Do you know what it's like being the golden child? The one who can never mess up because Dad needs someone to prove he's a good father? I got engaged last year. I didn't even want to get married yet, but Dad kept talking about how proud he was, how I was doing everything right, and I just went along with it. Because if I'm not perfect, then what was the point of any of this?" I stared at my brother, really looked at him. The expensive suit that fit too well, the watch that cost more than my first car, the exhaustion in his eyes that went deeper than one sleepless night. "Todd, he calls me twice a week," Todd continued, like he couldn't stop now that he'd started. "Asks how to talk to you. I give him advice and he ignores it, then calls back asking why you're still upset. I've been doing this for years, playing mediator, playing therapist, playing the good son so you could be the bad one, and I'm so tired of it I can barely think straight anymore." The coffee in my hand had gone cold. I set it down carefully. I didn't know. "How could you?" Todd leaned back, closed his eyes. "I made sure nobody knew. That's the whole point of being the golden child, right? You suffer quietly so everyone else can have their roles." We sat there in silence for a while. The sun was fully up now, light streaming through the windows, making everything look too bright and sharp. Finally, I said, "What do you want me to do?" "I don't know." Todd opened his eyes, looked at me. "I just needed you to know you're not the only one he's broken. You're just the only one who had the guts to walk away." My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello?" Hi, this is Mr. Lambert again, from Westfield Automotive. His voice was careful, like he was picking his way through a minefield. I'm calling because, well, there's something you should probably know about that video. I put it on speaker so Todd could hear. What about it? Your father's been in my office for the past hour. He asked to see the video, so I showed it to him. He's watched it 12 times now, keeps rewinding to the same spot right before the toast, and I'm watching him watch it, and I can see him just breaking down. He keeps pausing it at this one moment, maybe 2 seconds long, where he's looking at you and his whole face changes, softens, like he's about to say something real. Lambert paused, and I could hear him breathing. I've worked with your father for 15 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you in that frame. And then it's gone. His face hardens up and he makes the joke instead. It's like he physically can't let the kindness escape, like something in his brain just won't allow it. Todd was staring at the phone like it might explode. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because he left my office 20 minutes ago and I'm worried about him. Because in 15 years I've never seen a man look so haunted by his own face. Lambert cleared his throat. And because I thought maybe if you knew what I saw, you might understand him better. Or at least understand why he is the way he is. Understanding and forgiving are two different things. I know, Lambert said quietly. I'm just giving you information. What you do with it is your call. He hung up. Todd and I looked at each other. What the hell do we do with that? Todd asked. I didn't have an answer, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. A 2-second window where my father's face showed genuine affection before slamming shut again, like he'd been programmed to self-destruct every moment of vulnerability, and I needed to know why. At 9 p.m. that night, I drove to my grandmother's house. I hadn't been there in maybe 3 years, not since Christmas 2022, when she made her famous pecan pie and my dad spent the whole dinner telling her it wasn't as good as it used to be. She lived 40 minutes outside the city in a small ranch house with a porch that desperately needed new paint. I parked in the driveway and walked up to the door, rang the bell before I could talk myself out of it. She answered in a bathrobe, reading glasses perched on her nose, confusion spreading across her face when she saw me. Honey, what are you doing here? I need to ask you about Grandpa. The confusion turned into something else, something that looked like fear. She actually stepped back from the door, one hand going to her throat. Why would you ask about him? Because I need to understand something about Dad, and I think it starts with him. She stood there for a long moment, just looking at me. Then she opened the door wider. Come in, I'll make tea. We sat at her kitchen table, the same one I'd eaten Sunday dinners at as a kid. She made chamomile tea with shaking hands, set the cup in front of me, then sat down across from me like she was preparing for surgery. What do you want to know? What was Grandpa like? Really like? Her face went pale, actually pale, like I'd asked her to describe a crime scene. Your grandfather was not a good man. I need specifics. She wrapped both hands around her teacup, stared into it like she might find answers there. He mocked your father constantly, called him soft, weak, said real men didn't cry, didn't show affection, didn't need anyone. Your father played baseball in high school, made varsity as a sophomore, which was huge. He was so proud. Came home with his first trophy, this little gold thing, and showed it to your grandfather. You know what your grandfather did? I shook my head, looked at it for maybe 5 seconds, then picked it up and threw it in the trash. Said trophies were for people who needed validation because they weren't good enough to know their own worth. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. How old was Dad? 15. She was crying now, tears running down her face silently. I pulled the trophy out of the trash after your grandfather went to bed. Your father was in his room crying. I tried to give it back to him and he told me to throw it away. Said his father was right. Jesus Christ. It got worse. She stood up abruptly, walked to a cabinet in the hallway, came back with a shoebox. I found this when we were clearing out your father's old room. He must have forgotten it was there. She opened it and pulled out a piece of notebook paper, yellowed with age, folded into careful squares. She handed it to me with trembling fingers. Read it. I unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was young, messy, but unmistakably my father's. It was dated June 1981. My father would have been 16. I will tell my son I love him. I will be proud of him out loud. I will not be my father. I will not make my son feel small. I will not need him to fail so I can feel big. I will be different. I have to be different. I promise I will be different. I read it 3 times. Then I pulled out my phone and took a picture of it. He wrote that the day after your grandfather told him he'd never amount to anything, Grandma said quietly. He kept it in his wallet for years. I don't know when he stopped carrying it. I stood up. I need to go. Wait! But I was already walking to the door, shoebox letter clutched in my hand, purpose burning through my confusion, because now I understood, and understanding made it so much worse. I got in my car and drove straight to Westfield Automotive. It was 10 p.m. on a Thursday, and I knew my father worked late on Thursdays because he always had, for as long as I could remember. The parking lot was mostly empty except for a few cars near the service entrance. One of them was his, a silver Honda Accord he'd been driving for 8 years because he said people who bought new cars every 2 years were idiots with more money than sense. He was walking to his car when I pulled up. I got out, left my engine running, walked straight toward him with my phone out. He saw me and stopped, keys dangling from his hand, face draining of color. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer. I just pulled up the photo of the letter and shoved the phone 6 inches from his face. "You became exactly what your father was, and you're too broken to see it." He went completely still, his eyes locked on the screen, reading the words he'd written 44 years ago, and I watched something inside him crack. His breathing got faster, shallower. His free hand went to his chest. The keys fell from his other hand and clattered on the pavement. He started, but the word came out strangled. His knees buckled. I reached for him on instinct, but he collapsed against his car before I could catch him, sliding down the driver's side door until he was sitting on the ground, back against the wheel well. He was hyperventilating now, full-blown panic attack, eyes wide and unfocused. "Dad!" Security guards came running from the building, 2 of them. One I recognized from the Christmas party 3 years ago when I'd shown up out of obligation and left early. They saw my father on the ground and immediately went to him, one crouching down, the other pulling out a radio. "Sir, you need to leave the property," the one I recognized said to me, firm but not unkind. "Now! He's having a panic attack. We've got him. You need to go." The other guard was helping my father up, supporting his weight, guiding him toward the building. I saw Mr. Lambert coming out of the service entrance, saw him take in the scene, and immediately moved to help. My father's face was buried in his hands now, shoulders shaking. He wouldn't look at me, couldn't look at me. I backed toward my car, watching through the glass doors as they got him inside, sat him down in a chair in what looked like a break room. Mr. Lambert was crouched beside him, hand on his shoulder, talking. My father was still covering his face. I got in my car and drove. Made it maybe 3 blocks before I had to pull over because my hands were shaking too hard to hold the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. Text from Todd. "Mom just called me screaming. What did you do?" I didn't answer. I just sat there in a random parking lot, engine running, watching people walk in and out of a 24-hour CVS like the world was still normal and made sense. 2 hours later, I was sitting in my apartment staring at the wall when Todd called. 19th call. I finally answered. "He's in the ER, Todd said before I could speak. His voice was hollow. "He hasn't spoken since the parking lot. Won't look at anyone. Mom's losing her mind." "What the hell happened?" I told him everything. The letter, Grandma's story, what I'd said to Dad. Todd was quiet for a long time. "I need to tell you something," he said finally. "Mom told me last year that Dad attempted suicide when he was 25. His father had called him worthless one too many times, and Dad took a bottle of pills. Uncle Tom found him, got him to the hospital. No one ever talked about it again. The air left my lungs." "Jesus Christ, Todd. I'm at the hospital right now. He's stable, but he won't talk. Mom asked me to call you." A pause. "I don't know if you should come or not, but I thought you should know." I drove to the hospital doing 80 and a 65. Got there in 20 minutes, parked crooked across 2 spaces, ran inside to the ER desk. The nurse directed me to a room on the 2nd floor. I found it, stood outside the door for a minute trying to breathe, then walked in. My father was sitting on the hospital bed, fully dressed, staring at the wall. His face was empty in a way I'd never seen before. When I stepped into his line of sight, he turned his head to face the wall. "Dad?" Nothing, like I didn't exist. My mother appeared in the doorway behind me. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't read, then walked past me and shoved a battered shoebox into my chest. Our eyes met for half a second. Then she turned and walked away without saying a word. I looked down at the box. Old. Corners soft with age, rubber band wrapped around it 3 times. I sat down in the chair beside the bed and opened it. Inside were dozens of letters, envelopes addressed to me in my father's handwriting, none of them sealed, none of them sent. I picked up the one on top, no date. I opened it and started reading. "I saw your LinkedIn profile today. You're doing well. I felt proud. I called you to tell you that, but when you answered, I made a joke instead because saying I'm proud felt like handing you a knife to stab me with. I hung up and I hated myself. I'm writing this at 2 a.m. because I can't sleep. You'll never read this. I'm too much of a coward to send it." I picked up another one. This one dated from 3 years ago. "You paid off the mortgage. Your mother cried for an hour. I stood in the bedroom and felt something in my chest that I think was gratitude, but I don't know how to access it. I came downstairs and said something cruel instead. You looked at me like you expected it. That look is burned into my brain. I caused that look. I keep causing it. I don't know how to stop." Another letter. Another confession of failures, of moments where kindness died in his throat and cruelty came out instead. "I'm doing exactly what my father did, and I can see it happening and I can't stop it. You're successful despite me, not because of me. I know this. It makes me proud and it destroys me at the same time. If I tell you I love you, you won't believe me. I've used up all my chances. This is the bed I made." I was crying, actually crying, tears hitting the paper and making the ink run. I looked up at my father. He was still facing the wall, but his shoulders were shaking. The door opened again. Todd walked in, stopped when he saw me surrounded by letters. His face did something complicated. "You knew about these," I said, not a question. Todd closed the door behind him, leaned against it. "I found them 2 years ago when I was helping them move some furniture. They were in a box in the back of Dad's closet. I read maybe 5 of them and had to stop because I couldn't breathe." He looked at our father. "I thought if I kept the family together long enough, if I just kept playing mediator, he'd eventually fix himself. But he's never going to, is he?" Todd's voice cracked on the last word. Then he started crying, actually sobbing, sliding down the door until he was sitting on the floor with his knees pulled up, face buried in his arms. I'd never seen my brother cry. Not once in 32 years. I stood up, went to him, sat down beside him. We sat there on the hospital floor while our father faced the wall and didn't say a word. A nurse came in 15 minutes later. "I'm sorry, but he's requesting to be alone." We stood up. I grabbed the shoebox and we walked out, leaving our father in that room with the walls he'd built around himself. We were walking down the hallway when Mom appeared from around the corner, phone pressed to her ear. Her face was white. She hung up and just looked at us. "He checked himself out," she said. "Took an Uber. He's not answering his phone." The 3 of us stood there in that hospital hallway under the fluorescent lights, and nobody said anything because there was nothing to say. "We need to find him," Todd said finally. Mom went home to check there. Todd went to the office. I drove to Grandma's house because I had a feeling, one of those gut instincts you can't explain, and I was right. His silver Accord was parked out front in the dark, empty. I found him on the back porch, sitting on the steps in the cold. He wasn't wearing a jacket. It was maybe 40 degrees outside, and he was in just a button-down shirt, staring at nothing. I sat down beside him, didn't say anything, just sat there. 10 minutes passed. The cold seeped through my jeans. I could see my breath in the air. "I keep hearing his voice," my father said suddenly. His voice was hoarse, wrecked, my father's, telling me you succeeded despite me, not because of me. He reached into his jacket pocket with shaking hands and pulled out a manila envelope, set it on the step between us. I picked it up, opened it. It was a will, dated 6 months ago. I started reading and felt the ground drop out from under me. Everything went to Todd. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts, the car. My name appeared exactly once, in a line that said, "I leave nothing to my youngest son, as he has earned everything he has through his own merit and owes me nothing."
What the hell is this?
"You don't owe me anything," he said, still not looking at me. "You earned what you have yourself. Todd still thinks he needs to earn my love, so maybe the money will help him see he already has it." He pulled out his car keys, turned them over in his hands. I've known for months that I was destroying our relationship. I watched myself do it, chose not to stop. He stood up abruptly, keys gripped tight in his fist. "I needed you to destroy me before I could be honest, which means I'm exactly like him." "Dad," but he was already walking toward his car, moving fast, purposeful. "Where are you going?" He stopped at the driver's door, finally looked back at me. His face was completely blank. "Somewhere you don't have to see me anymore." "Wait." He got in the car, started the engine, and pulled out of the driveway before I could move. I watched his taillights disappear down the street. Then I was running to my car, fumbling with my keys, calling Todd. "He left," I said when Todd answered. "He said something about going somewhere I don't have to see him and he just drove off. I'm calling Mom." Todd's voice was pure panic. "Stay on the line." 3-way call. Mom picked up on the first ring. "Did you find him?" "He left Grandma's," I said. "He's driving somewhere and I don't know where." My phone buzzed. Text notification. I pulled it away from my ear to look. Text from Dad. "Checking into inpatient facility 2 hours north. Don't visit. Need to do this alone. Tell Todd and your mother I'm sorry." I read it out loud. Silence on the line. "I'm going there," I said. "He said not to." "I don't care what he said." I drove. 2 hours through the dark, hands clenched on the wheel, trying not to think about pills and razors and all the ways this could go wrong. The facility was called Pine Grove Recovery Center, set back from the road behind tall pines that gave it its name. The parking lot was mostly empty. I found his Honda parked near the entrance. Inside was a lobby that tried too hard to look welcoming. Soft lighting, comfortable chairs, landscape paintings on the walls. And there was my father, sitting at the intake desk filling out paperwork. He was talking to a woman in scrubs, signing something, nodding along to whatever she was saying. He looked up, saw me. His pen stopped moving. I walked toward him and he just watched me come, expression unreadable. "I'm doing this so you can stop worrying I'll end up like my father did," he said clearly, carefully, like he'd practiced the line. "But I need you to leave and not come back." The woman in scrubs looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. "Dad?" "Please," his voice cracked. "I need you to leave." He signed the last form, stood up, handed everything to the woman. She gestured toward a set of locked double doors. My father walked toward them, shoulders straight, not looking back. A buzzer sounded. The doors opened. He stepped through. They closed behind him with a heavy click. I stood there in that lobby for I don't know how long. The woman at the desk asked if I needed anything. I shook my head and walked out into the cold night air, got in my car, and drove home. 3 weeks later, I was making coffee when my phone buzzed. New number I didn't recognize. Text message from Todd. "Dad's still there. Asked me to tell you he's sorry he needed you to break him before he could see you." I read it twice. Then I deleted the message, blocked the number, and poured my coffee. Through the kitchen window, I could see the sun coming up over the buildings, painting everything gold and clean. I drank my coffee and watched the light change, and I didn't respond.